In the shadows where the hackers hide, we rise above with a trusted guide. Ogun, standing shields held high, your safety first, they never shy. Ogun security, strong and bold, guarding secrets, stories untold.
Again, good morning from here. It's going to be afternoon in Africa. Listener, and welcome to another edition of the OSRS Leadership Series podcast, brought to you by Ogun Security Research and Strategic Services. At OSRS, we are committed to advancing national security, digital investigation, cyber intelligence, and strategic policy dialogue across Africa and beyond. We serve government institutions and private entities by bridging the gap between policy, intelligence, and technology. So you can visit our website to learn more about our work. Today's episode is titled Leadership in Unstable Times, Confronting Nigeria's Security Crisis with Strategic Vision. As Nigeria approaches the 2027 general election, the country faces persistent threats ranging from terrorism and banditry to cybercrime and political violence. To navigate these turbulent times, the nation requires leadership that is strategic, informed, and globally aware. And it is my honor to welcome a distinguished guest whose voice is both scholarly and strategic, Professor Sheriff Folarin. Professor Folarin is a renowned scholar of international relations and currently a visiting professor at Texas State University. He's talking to me from Rwanda today. He formerly served as a professor and head of Department of International Relations at Covenant University, Nigeria. He's a prolific author and policy thought leader. He is a Carnegie Fellow and member of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. His research spans African governance, global diplomacy, and strategic development, making him a most fitting voice for today's topic. Professor Sheriff, it is a pleasure to have you with me today.
My professor friend, Dr. Ogunlana. The pleasure is all mine, and I'm really pleased to be part of this very reputable program and platform. Thank you.
Thank you. So let us begin with your broad view. How do you interpret the current state of insecurity in Nigeria through both national and international lens? So let's look, both international and national lenses. How do you interpret what's going on at this point in time?
Thank you very much, my very good friend and brother. First, I will say that Nigeria has faced over the years a very complex security crisis characterized by multiple threats, which include, of course, terrorism, and in recent times, banditry. For a very long time, we've had armed robbery, then kidnapping for ransom, which has become an industry, very, very, lucrative one at that. We must not forget, too, that over the years, we've also had to deal with, the issues of, ritual practices, which have manifested in disappearances of people from toddler's age to adolescent, even to adulthood. So I would say that Nigeria's security problem is very multiple and is very extremely complex. And I would say that, one dimension of it is the internal dynamics, and then we're beginning to have the external dynamics of it. And that's why the issue of terrorism and, such things as, cross-border crime and what have you, they have become the international or external dynamics of our crisis, security crisis. And then there seems to be that kind of symbiotic relationship between internal dynamics and external dynamics. And you will see that terrorism, security issues, they are becoming borderless. And the reason is, as the world is growing and evolving, and we are having some dynamics in terms of movement and communication, so are we also having dynamics, and very unfortunately so, dynamics in terms of the security crisis, not only in Nigeria, but the world over. And that's why we began to have terrorism, unfold steadily from 2010 up to 2011. And then now, we would also see that the borderlessness, which of course is one of the downsides of globalization, but borderlessness supposed to be a good dynamic, incidentally, but it's also a downside. And you see that the borderlessness has also kind of made, the security situation even more, didactic and quite, complex. And now you have, groups shaking hands across the boundaries. And that's what entrenches, security crisis. So internal and the external would eventually snowball into a national security crisis, a national emergency, which of course is what we have witnessed over the years. The situation is also exacerbated by conflicts between farmers and herders, which we have had in the last probably 5 or 6 years, militancy in the Niger Delta, and of course the separatist movement, that we've had in the Southeast. The Southeast has over the years, sought to be on their own, which is like the second phase of what we had between 1967 and 1970, when they said they were going to leave the rest of Nigeria for, reason bordering on marginalization, exclusion, and what have you. They are saying that this has even, reached a more intense, level. And so they needed to kind of have a niche for themselves, have their own political autonomy, and then they can begin to drive their own national development and what have you. So that's another dimension of Nigeria's security crisis. Now, all of these issues are often linked to social and economic challenges such as poverty, unemployment, poor governance, marginalization, and like I said, exclusion, the policies of exclusion, and the rest of them. But let's now kind of identify the key aspects of the security crisis. Now, while we have identified all of those ones,
I will get there, but what I understand with your broad view is that we've seen a mismatch between capacity and the complexity of the emerging threat. Now, let me ask you, in your view, where as leadership, both political and institutional, let me put it that way, falling short in addressing Nigerian security challenges? Because I know that's where we are moving to now. So let me get your view on that.
We need to look at something very fundamental, which many people don't always look at. And that's the fact that, first and foremost, what is Nigeria? Now, if Nigeria is seen to be as a very cohesive society, a place where it has become a melting ground, and then you have a nation, that has evolved, everybody will put their mind from leadership to the grassroots. It's a top-down thing and even a bottom-up, kind of a situation. Everyone will put their mind to the Nigerian project, and everyone will believe so much that if Nigeria falls, they all fall. But what is Nigeria? And this is a conversation that people try to avoid. Now, the thing is that where there is no Nigeria, then of course governance itself is going to be lax as far as arresting the security, multiple security challenges. This is how I try to describe Nigeria. I see Nigeria as a Titanic ship, which is sinking. Again, we must understand that the reason why it has sunk to this level is because of the detachment from the Nigerian project. People don't believe that they are Nigeria. People believe that first and foremost they are, Igbo, Hausa, or Yoruba. People also, by extension, see themselves as being Northerners or being Westerners or being Easterners or being Southerners. So there is no commitment to the Nigeria project, and that is why, government itself is a product of society. There's no way government can be different from the society. Government is a product and a reflection of the society.
That's
We are
correct.
all products, of society, and then we find circumstances and situations galvanizing us to the point where we get to leadership positions. We cannot detach ourselves from our roots. We'll continue to be the society that we reflect.
And
And
I
that is
love
why.
and I love that part, Prof. I love that the way you gave the foundation of Nigeria, the way we are, but I've always been telling people it's going to be top-down approach because without having a good leader who will be able to impart us, we've seen it even in advanced democracy. It's now open that all those things that they've done in the past is because they have good leader who that influence their policy. So when you have this other type of leadership, which of course we experience all over the world today, definitely we're not going to have that kind of resort, which of course we've been getting all over the world in the past. So, but now let's go back to Nigerian national security issue. What are the doctrinal, because you already lay foundation for that in general perspective. So what are the doctrinal and philosophical gaps you see in Nigerian current national security approach based on what you just mentioned?
First, I would say that we lack what we call security governance. It's absolutely lacking. And it's something that we must also kind of link to that particular contracture that has been created over the years. Where there's no Nigerian project, there cannot be governance in general. And then security governance would also be kind of, will be in a state of, dilemma. And I would say that, security governance always starts with with a political vision. You and I, we are part of the security governance, but and I'm happy you said something about the top down approach. But we need something to guide us. We need a vision. We need an architecture. We need a system to work with. We need a framework to work with. Who provides that? You and I cannot provide that, or else it will be anarchy. So government has to provide that. Where there is lack of security governance, you find that there is no political vision. So political vision, when it is absent, then of course you cannot have what you call security governance. You don't even have an idea what security is all about. Now, again, we must understand as a corollary to that is the fact that the political will be lacking. I mean, you can only have political will when you have a vision. When you have a vision, you have something that's going to drive you. It becomes a driver, of a particular action. But where you lack the vision, there is nothing to work with, then there cannot be the will. And then again, that also kind of dovetails into the fact that there will definitely not be what we call an action plan. And where there is no action plan, there is nothing to execute. So people are just reactive. People are spontaneous. Government is spontaneous, is reactive. They don't know what to do. So, okay, now terrorism has taken a new turn. So what do we do? How do we address it? That is what government has been doing for the past 15 years or thereabout. Why? But if there is a political vision and then there is the political will, there will be that architecture or framework, and there will be that security governance that will eventually galvanize Nigeria to the levels that it should get to. Now, I'm in Rwanda at the moment. You see, one of the things that actually has made Rwanda to have, to have security governance is because of the experience they had in 1994. And that has not changed. The vision remains there, the will is there, and then the government that has given the vision and that has the will has also provided a framework with which the people move, which also drives the security forces within the system. And that is why at every point you find that the Rwandan template is such that it's unchangeable. The only thing that can make it change is when there is an upgrade of it. It can never go down. So they keep building on what they have. Now, you see, we used to have what we call the National Security Symposium. Now, that was something that it wasn't individuals or civil society that started it. It was government's idea that let's have a National Security Symposium that will be organized by the RDF, that is the Rwanda Defense Force. Now, every year, they've had that for like 11 years. I've been part of it for a couple of years, for 12 years, please. Now they said, let's go beyond that. Let's upgrade it. Let's not just make it a military thing. Let's make it all of the security, agencies thing. And let's also have the civil society, partake in it. Let's drive it together. Let it be a general, societal vision. No longer just from government or from the army or from the police or from the intelligence community. Let's do it together. So you see, it like that's why I said once there is that vision and there is that will, there will be that provision for framework, there will be that architecture, and then there will be upgrading of whatever security governance that is in place. And that is what has defined the Rwandan security architecture and governance.
And I completely agree with you. Our security doctrine in Nigeria still reflects um, the Cold War era, where we focus on just territorial defense rather than human security. We've seen um, that happening in Rwanda, but Nigeria would lack that clear counterinsurgency philosophy. So it is only adaptive to asymmetric warfare. And we've seen insufficient investment in intelligence infrastructure, those community engagement you just mentioned, some, and security training, curricula have not evolved to prioritize all those threats we're talking about. So before I ask you my fourth question, so you are listening to the OSRS Leadership Series powered by Ogun Security Research and Strategic Service. OSRS is your trusted partner for cybersecurity strategy, intelligence training, and digital investigation. We equip organizations across sectors to face emerging security challenges. Again, you can visit our website, ogunsecurity.com, to learn about what we do. Now, Prof, looking beyond Nigeria, what lesson can be drawn from international examples, which of course started giving to us? Where countries have successfully managed internal insecurity through strong leadership and reform. You started saying something about Rwanda, and I want to know more, and probably few examples of where we've seen that kind of reform and good leadership, strong leadership that has really helped them with the insecurity.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, from where we were left off, we're talking about the fact that the experience of 1994 and even before, kind of shaped their kind of landscape, their security landscape, and the way they govern themselves as far as security is concerned. Now, we would say that Rwanda is one of those examples. What about Israel? Israel also had something similar. Israel had always been, at the crossroads when it comes to, they are right in the middle of, adversaries. And you also recall that even there was a bigger adversary as far back as 1930s and early 1940s, when they were almost exterminated from existence. So now that experience or those experiences have informed the way Israel kind of responds. Now, Israel does not have a reactive security governance. Israel has a plan, and then they keep building on it because they know that there's an evolution. They see that society keeps evolving, so they keep building on it, and they keep containing whatever thing that might be coming from all the angles, all the arsenals that might want to be launched at them. So Israel is a very good example, and of course you want to mention Russia. Russia knows the kind of the dynamics of the international politics. They know where they're coming from. They knew that they had a bigger adversary in the past, and they knew that they cannot just fold their hands and say, okay, the Cold War is over, so it's let's go back to roller coaster, whatever. So they are always kind of developing on whatever they have, and that's why you see that Russia seems to be having an edge. Now, one thing is this: security does not exist in isolation.
That's correct.
It exists. It's something that exists. It's something that works with the political, the social, the economic, the military, this everything, even the culture. And until we have that kind of vision or doctrine, to use your word, that security is not something you just put aside and say, let the security agencies manage security. No, it requires politics, it requires economics, it requires all sorts of things, all sorts of approaches, and indeed use of all sorts of instruments that are available to ensure that we have national stability and order. So that is the way those three countries have given. That is the way they manage their security. And then you want to look at China. China does the same thing as well. Now, China is beginning to even use what we call economic security, okay, to be able to, just as we talk about, the use of, what's it called, trade tariff or trade wars being considered of politics by economic means. So do we also have consideration of politics by security means, okay? And, sometimes they use, some kind of maybe negative um, instruments to want to kind of get what they want. Sometimes they use positive, sometimes they use, trade, sometimes. But whatever be the case, like I remember when I said negative, what came to mind is COVID-19.
Yeah.
Though we cannot specifically claim that it actually emanated from China, but we have had some kind of reasonable proof that actually probably it is from China. But what has Machiavelli said? He said that you get things done by all means, or you achieve things by all means. You don't have to, be immoral or have to be kind of religious or have to be irreligious. Just be immoral. Just make sure you get it done. Just get the results done. And that Machiavelli is what I think works when they're talking international politics now. People don't really care about whether I am being a devil or I'm being a god, or I'm being whatever it is. So what matters is get things done. And for there to be stability, internal stability, before you talk about regional or sub-regional or international, it has to be internal stability matters first. If you cannot say you want to go and begin to contribute to, to charity, but probably in terms of giving food aid and all that, when the internal the internal itself is not really well fed. So we have to take care of internal security first before we talk about
I got you,
the
Prof.
regional. Yes.
Yeah. You gave Rwanda, the example you gave is a compelling case study. Post-genocide, the country rebuilt its security architecture around discipline, intelligence, and community resilience. And what comes to mind again is Colombia, that just transitioned from a state overrun by guerrilla groups and cartel to one with greater control through integrated counterintelligence effort. And if you look at both cases, leadership was firm, reform-minded, and citizen-focused. So what I put together with what you just mentioned now is that Nigerian can actually learn from case of Rwanda. And this model, by decentralizing its security apparatus, investing in local intelligence, and building a leadership culture center on public trust. That's all what I see from what you are saying. I don't want to talk about China. They are far ahead of us, right? So
That's right.
when I look at President of South Africa yesterday in Oval Office, I love his composure. He didn't go there to go and beg for money, but he begged for one thing, was asking for technology, asking for drone, asking for technology that will make them confront insecurity in South Africa. And I felt very bad about that at this point in time, we should not be able to do that. So what role should the academic and research community, especially scholars in the diaspora, in Nigeria, play in shaping Nigerian policy, environment, and security doctrine in responding to all some of those gaps?
I'm glad you brought this up. What role? I'm one of the avid critics of academics, of my own people, my own constituency, for always just kind of doing things the way others do it without necessarily remembering the fact that we are supposed to be solution providers, not only by way of writing papers and going for conferences, but being practical in our approach, getting things done. Let me just quickly say this before I now give you, my own take or what I think about the path forward. You see, in 2020, 2021, when this COVID-19 thing, struck, my own colleagues who are in, those of them that are in, mainstream within the field, that they should bury themselves in their laboratories and be thinking of what to do. Professors of whatever it is, virology and things like that, who should actually be busy. They were on lockdown like me, a professor of international relations. They were also locking themselves down and then putting on face masks and not, doing social distancing and what have you. None of them went to the laboratory to begin to do research on how to contribute to that particular area of security, which of course is health security. Now, again, professors of political science, they will prefer that they'll be looking for political appointments and then be very close to government and say, oh, they are relevant and all of that. But the best way to be relevant is to go into your political laboratory or social laboratory and be to find ways, come up with some kind of ideas, come up with things that will be panacea or that will be solution to whatever situation that we are combating with. Now, that brings us to security experts, researchers, scientists, and what have you. You see, we deserve to be flogged, and these, to a large extent, should push us into, the go take us back to the drawing board. We close the doors against ourselves, and begin to come up with all sorts of things. We are begging the United States for drones. And that's supposed to be a giant of Africa, South Africa, right before the president of the United States. Who cares? Who doesn't care about Africa? Someone who probably has made up his mind, has shut his mind totally against Africa. And then all that he's going after is, his own people that look like him. And then you now find one of the giants of Africa going begging. Then you find another giant of Africa going to France all the time, going for health, care and what have you. What is happening to our experts here? But let's limit it to security now. Let's not talk about the broader, perspectives. So we have our own, scientists, pure, physicists and what have you. We have them who could come up with things that can actually, be the game changer, and then make us not to kind of look so vulnerable and so stupid before the international community. Like you said, I share that sentiment. It looks really stupid that you had, let's be frank, if we had a Chad, I'm sorry that I have to use that example. You have a Guinea or you have a Central African Republic do that, you understand. But you have a South Africa that is, rich in military industrial complex. I mean, military industry is a massive one. And you have a Nigeria that has the potential to also be a massive military, to have a massive military industry. And then you have, uranium. You have all the resources to be able to get things done. And then you have to go back to your colonial master and be asking for drones, asking for Starlinks, and asking for all sorts of things. That is despicable, is deplorable, is condemnable. But you see, and that's what, since this forum is on now, let me use this platform to urge my colleagues, to urge our security scientists and experts and what have you. Rather than doing the talking, let them do the walking. Okay, let them walk the talk rather than just do all of the talking. And how does that happen? Let's see what we can do in terms of producing, starting from scratch, producing what we can call a military industry. Something that will be, immediate solution to our immediate problems. Okay, we're talking about, terrorism, banditry, kidnapping in Nigeria, and we don't have the basics such as just ordinary drones to kind of help in surveillance, to be able to prevent, to be able to, lead to arrest, to be able to stop and things like that.
Recent report actually showed that the terrorists are using better drones, weaponized one against our force. Anyway, that's a very good one, Prof. My final question, as we approach the 2027 general election, what are your greatest concerns and what recommendation will you offer to prevent a breakdown in national cohesion? We've seen people being forced to join the ruling party. Are we moving towards one party system? And do you think we are going to have election at all?
You see, first and foremost, I'm bothered that like this test case, the Rivers case, where you can just remove a democratically elected governor, and then you can put in an administrator for no reason. There was no case for emergency, nothing occasioned that. That is done. That is not good. That's a tempest sea. And if we continue in that trajectory, I'm sorry, it doesn't portend anything good. It portends danger, and it's going to be a security threat, security risks for Nigeria. But I think above all, we need to begin to do, when I was going through what you sent to me, we need to begin to do a rethink in terms of institutional, framework for security, in terms of building institutions or kind of reforming institutions. And I think one of the major things we need to do before 2027, and we've been saying this all along, but it's been more of talk shop rather than workshop. And that's increasing police funding. and size. Now, let's not mistake increasing size to mean just bringing anybody again and have the numbers. No. But let's have people that are really skilled, that are trained. Now, what did Plato say about, justice, which is not a legal concept, but a social functional concept, putting people in the places where they have the best aptitude. Now, we need to identify those that have aptitude for what we can call security governance. You see, we need to get to a point where we have a killer system that will identify the skill sets of individuals, not just, I'm Dari, I want to go and read medicine. Oh, I'm Sheriff, I want to go and read engineering. It's about the fact that what skill set do you have? Let us have a criminal system that will identify the skill sets. And that's what Plato advocated many, many years ago. But people just think it's just to read and pass examinations and what have you. It's something that we should apply to governance at all levels now. Identify those that have the skill sets for security, and that will include those that want to go into the army or military generally, those that want to go into the paramilitary, sector, including police and what have you, and then those that want to be part of the governance, the echelon of those that actually are designing the infrastructure, its architecture and implementing and ensuring that infrastructure is built. We need to increase police funding. It's very important before 2027, particularly for training. I still have a couple of more, things to mention about this thing. Now, in terms of training and equipment, I have seen a lot of, places where police will say they don't even have ordinary, what do you call it, handcuffs, and so they will have to hold people by their belts. That's how they are.
And pull them.
Okay, they don't have vehicles, and if they do, they don't have petrol for their vehicles. And I've also seen places where the police don't even have, basic things to provide for those that are being arrested. So the tendency is there for them to compromise. There will be more compromises of security when you're asking those that are criminal and that they should be the ones to provide things for themselves. You have already compromised to some extent, and then the tendency to want to let go of them, let them, escape would also be there. So it's important that we get that right. Then there's also the need for legislative oversight. Our legislators are sleeping. All they do now is to kind of be trading words and then be going after some women and talking about, they want to recruit themselves from, investigation about what they are doing, some of their misdemeanors and what have you. We need to see to it that the legislature is taking a very serious, they see themselves as serious and responsible human beings, and they are taking serious measures to see to it that they have very good oversight over security governance. If the executive is lax, let the legislator, let them rise to the occasion and let them come up with something that will be compelling, that nobody is going to resist even at the highest level. We need to look at that. The quality of legislative oversight is very important in security governance. Then what about reducing, suspicions of the NGOs? We need to address that, the perception of NGOs as a threat, and then rather foster collaboration between NGOs. Let me tell you why we think NGOs are a threat. Some of them we don't know what their motives are. Some of them we think that they're also being sponsored by some adversaries around. We really don't know their intent. So the tendency is there to always kind of want to undermine.
Another topic entirely to discuss next time because of our time, Professor Folarin.
All right, that's fine.
And thank you sincerely for sharing your insight today. You have reminded us that the challenge Nigeria faces are not merely security issues. They are leadership challenges. Visionary leadership, doctrinal reform, and intelligence-driven approach must form the foundation of our national renewal. So, to our audience, we plan to spend 20 minutes. If you are a policymaker, academic, security professional, or concerned citizen, now is the time to engage, inform, and lead. If I've allowed Professor Sherif, we are going to spend 3 hours here. The podcast is a production of Ogun Security Research and Strategic Services, where we develop the tools, training, and strategy that make nations safer and smarter. Explore our work at ogunsecurity.com or email us to learn how OSRS can support your institution. Until next time, I'm Dr. Oludare Ogunlana. Thank you for listening, and let us all rise. The call of purposeful leadership. Again, thank you, Professor Sherry.
Ẹlẹgbẹ́ sọ̀dá ni wọ́n rí. jana. Ogun security ló mú wa láǹfààní.